I have just made a god tier smoothie. I kind of just want to get it over with. They are a disgusting human being. And it's a very exciting day because I'm going getting a tattoo. Good morning. We are currently in London. So I was pretty sure that I wanted to DNF this. Hello. Today I am starting a follow-up video to a video that I accidentally made a couple of weeks ago. I ended up with a bunch of books left on my TBR that I had to read that all centered around dragons, and it was like purely accidental that I happened to read them all together. But I had such a good time with that vlog and those books, and I was so motivated to read, and I feel like considering the length of the books and the fact that they were all adult fantasy, I got through them with a decent amount of pace. So I asked you guys if you wanted a follow-up where I read the sequels to every book I read in that video, and you guys said yes. So I'm going to be reading 3 books in this vlog. The first one will be Blood of Dragons by Robin Hobb. I also have The Name of All Things by Jen Lyons, and the third one I have just checked out on my Waterstones basket earlier this morning, but it is The Fires of Vengeance by Evan Winter. I had a Waterstones gift card that I got from Gavin for Christmas, so thank you very much, Gavin, and I have finally used it. I think I ordered 4 or 5 books in total, but the main one that I needed was Fires of Vengeance. So I'll get to what the others are about when I actually get around to reading them. But first up, we have Blood of Dragons by Robin Hobb. Now, I didn't actually intend to make this dragon video this week, but the live show for this is the 27th of March. The other video I was going to make is my Goldsborough Science Fiction and Fantasy Fellowship vlog for the last 3 months, but I have pushed that back. That will be the next vlog I think you see after this one, because I need to read this before the live show. So this is the final book in the Rainwild Chronicles, and in this one we are following a group of young dragons and a group of young people who are from this community that said that they would look after all of these young dragons. However, as time has passed, the dragons are getting boisterous and restless, and the people are getting fed up with them, so they put together this group of young people who are like the misfits of society. They don't have any family, they're not useful to society, they won't be missed, you know, like that kind of thing. And that group of people are tasked with moving the young dragons to a location that will be more suitable to them. So this one is third person multi-perspective. You get the perspective of some of the dragon keepers, and you get the perspective of some of the dragons as well. In the third book in this series, we also had the reintroduction of a couple of characters from the live ship traders, which I really enjoyed. Even though the direction that those characters' paths are going in is not exactly happy, I'm excited to see them again because so far the live ship traders is my favorite series in the realm of the Elderlings as a whole. The third book in this series felt like just moving the characters around to get them in the place they needed to be for this book, so I'm expecting good payoff from this book, considering that book 3 didn't really have a plot. It was just maneuvering the characters. So I have started this. I am only 1 chapter in. I'm on page 18. This could go either way in terms of pace because Robin Hobb books are generally quite slow, but the Rainwild Chronicles books are shorter than Robin Hobb's typical books, so they move a little bit faster. I'm also expecting this to have a little bit more in terms of plot because book 3 was all set up, but typically Robin Hobb's chapters are also incredibly long. Like, I think in the last book there wasn't a chapter that was like under 25 pages, which does tend to slow me down considerably. So we'll see how it goes, but this one is my first objective. I'm just interrupting your scheduled programming to let you guys know that I have just made a god tier smoothie. This is the best tasting smoothie I have ever had in my entire life. It has water, natural yogurt, desiccated coconut, frozen mango, kale, mint, half an avocado, the zest and juice of half a lime, and a scoop of vanilla protein powder. It's so fucking good. Part of my Waterstones order arrived along with a letter for somebody who doesn't even live here. This I don't think is all of my order because it's too light, but I do know like I ordered at least 1 indie that will probably come later because they don't keep them in stock, they just order them from the publisher. But yeah, there's 2 things in here. The first one is, oh, Memory. I was really expecting that to be Fires of Vengeance, and it's Memory of Souls, but it's the 3rd book I think in the Chorus of Dragons, which I'm going to be reading book 2 soon. And the other one is People We Met on Vacation by Emily Henry, or as it's called in the UK, You and Me on Vacation. So I picked this one up because I'm going to Rare at the end of May and Emily Henry's going to be there, and Aaron recently told me that this was her favourite romance of I think 2021, so I thought I'd pick it up and give it a go because I know it's Friends to Lovers, and I think it's following 2 people who've been best friends for 10 years, and it develops their friendship across the vacations they they've taken over the 10 years, and then I'm assuming it builds up to them falling in love now. So I'm almost at the halfway point with Blood of Dragons. I'm on page 250, and you know, I would be lying if I said that this was the most compelling series in the realm of the Eldlings, and I am struggling with my pace reading this. Like, it's too easy for me to put this book down. I don't know why I'm not super invested in this one. It does have characters that I definitely don't like as main characters. Thymara is one that I really liked at the beginning of the series that I'm not that into anymore. But then, as is typical with Robin Hobb, there's also characters that I didn't love at the beginning that are now my favourite. We also have characters that have been introduced in books 3 and 4 that aren't new characters. They're from the Live Ship Traders and earlier in the realm of the Eldlings, but they're more at the forefront and they have their own perspectives now. And I actually feel, considering that book 3 didn't really do anything, I feel like book 4 is doing too much. Like, I'm halfway through this. We have so many main characters. They're all spread out across the world. Some of them are in places that we've never really explored before throughout the realm of the Eldlings. And we have antagonists that haven't even entered the fray yet. They've been established as antagonists since book 1, early book 1, and at this point, halfway through the final book in the series, they've yet to appear. They've yet to do anything. We also have a whole ton more traveling in this one. The entirety of the first 2 books in the series are traveling, and now it's back again, and the pacing is really slow in the traveling portions, considering we have so many perspectives and so much going on, so much we need to tie up in this book. The characters who are traveling are doing it so slowly. I am reading this slowly because it's not good for me. It's just not my favorite series in the realm of the Eldlings, and I think it's because a lot of the focus of these books is on the dynamics and the politics of a very small group of people. There are definitely outside influences on this group, but it is about them establishing themselves amongst each other. Something that I do like about this series is that we're getting more answers about the magic, which is why I really liked the Live Ship Traders, because that delved into the world and the magic from a wider viewpoint, I want to say, than the Fitz books do. And I feel like we're revealing things, like big things that we've had questions about since the very beginning of the realm of the Eldlings, and I'm hoping that there's more of that in here, because the part that I read yesterday had something that I felt was like a really big reveal. So I am hoping that that is expanded upon throughout the rest of this, but I just don't want it to get to a point where like it's all plot and we lose that, because at this point I'm more interested in the dragons and the origins of magic and the ancient cities and all of the secrets, and that like links up to different characters and their experiences throughout the realm of the Eldlings, even though it's from completely different perspectives and in different areas of the world than this series is. So that's where I'm at with this one. Slow progress, but progress nonetheless. I am hoping to have that done tomorrow. I'm not feeling hopeful, to be honest, because I'm not having the best time with how slow it is and how drawn out I feel like a lot of the portions are. I kind of just want to get it over with. I'm actually really motivated to read right now, and I feel like every time I pick up this and slog through another really long description of traveling, it's killing all of that good reading motivation in me. Oh, here she comes. Blood of Dragons is finished, which is a good thing as well, because the live show is in 8.5 hours. I really liked the last 200 pages or so of this. I have given it 4 stars overall because there's a lot of things in this series that I've not enjoyed as much as previous series in the realm of the Elderlings, and it is like recurring themes, like big central themes to the series that I haven't enjoyed as much. I feel like my ratings on the earlier books in this series do need to be adjusted a little bit. In hindsight, I would say that City of Dragons, which is book 3, is more of like a 3.53 than a 4-star, and the second book I would say is more of a 4 than a 5, just when you have the context of having read the entire series, if that makes sense. I just kind of wish that we'd gotten to the point in this series a little bit earlier, and then this also has a lot of cutaway moments, so instead of getting the bulk of the action on page, it will kind of show you a little bit of that scene and then just cut away to after the fact, which I have noticed is also recurring through this series. Like, we're missing the main points of any conflicts that go on, which is sad, especially as the most exciting and interesting things that have happened in this entire series happen towards the end of this book, and we only get like half of the conflict before it disappears. There is something that Robin Hobb does that kind of frustrates me in one way, but is also really satisfying in another way. I think it's especially present in the books that are set in like Bingtown and the Rainwilds, as opposed to the ones that are set in the Six Duchies, but she creates these absolutely detestable characters. One of the characters in the Life Ship Traders, I have never hated a character more in my life. They are a disgusting human being, and she makes you hate them so much that you want them to be violently murdered. Like, you want to read 100 pages of this character being tortured and getting exactly what they deserve for all of the horrible things that they've done to other people. But something that Robin Hobb does frequently is she resolves the conflict with that character in such a way that it is a non-event, which is frustrating from the point of like, this person has done so much harm that I want to see them suffer at length and get exactly what they deserve. But in another way, it really satisfies me because the way that they are treated represents how truly insignificant they are as people, and I love that sense of like belittlement that they have in their final moments. Like, you are not worthy of 1 page of resolution. That is beneath what you deserve. So it's frustrating from the point of like, I want them to suffer, but really satisfying in that like, you are so meaningless that you don't deserve any more page space in this book. I'm really interested to see how the things that have happened in here play out in the last Fitz trilogy. There's like something very obvious that is going to happen off the back of this series that is going to impact a lot in the world, but also there's hints of like further conflicts. I feel like there's a hint of where a further series may go from Robin Hobb, and I'm curious if that is what she's writing, because I have heard that she is writing further books in the realm of the Elderlings, but I don't know what it is and I haven't looked because I believe it's spoilery if you haven't finished the series. But I don't know at what point like I'm allowed to know what those further books are about, like whether it's after the Rainwild Chronicles, whether it's after the final Fitz books. I nearly cried towards the end of this because there was one moment with one character who we've seen in the Life Ship Traders as well, so they have a special place in my heart, and my heart went out to them. I don't know, like, I haven't loved this series, but I still have read a lot of pages from these characters' perspectives, so I have grown close to them in that kind of way, and it was nice to kind of see where they ended up at the end of this series. Big content warnings in here as well for rape, sad animal stuff, sad child stuff, anything to do with torture, and there's a little bit of focus on abuse as well. The ableism is less present the more you get into the series, but it does still like play a part in the themes of the series, I guess, so it is still slightly present in this one as well. So now I'm moving on to The Name of All Things by Jen Lyons, which is the book that I'm most excited to read for this vlog. This is the second book in the Chorus of Dragons series. It's a sequel to Ruin of Kings, and Ruin of Kings is a book that I should not have enjoyed because it is so confusing. It has 8 of everything essentially. There's like 8 dragons, 8 gods, 8 god kings. There's also like kind of themes of immortality and reincarnation. There's a death god that people worship, and the people who worship this death god have the ability to resurrect people. So there's lots of instances of people who should be dead and aren't dead, or were thought to have been executed but escaped. People who swapped bodies, so are still in existence but nobody knows because they're wearing somebody else's body, and all of that kind of stuff. But I really enjoyed Ruin of Kings. It was really compelling. I loved the way that the story was told as well, because it starts off as a transcript of a conversation between 2 people. The 2 people are telling the story of the main character Kieran from different points in time. One of them is Kieran himself, and he's telling his story in first person, and at the time that the story is being told, Kieran is imprisoned with a monster, and the monster is also telling Kieran's story from an earlier point in time in third person, and then the 2 stories build up to a point where they kind of meet present day and a big event in the story. So I'm not sure how this is going to be told and whether it's going to follow the same kind of structure. Okay, so the foreword at the beginning of this is from a different character than the foreword of the first one. So I don't know how this one is going to play out, but I'm intrigued to find out. So I'm actually going to go and repot a whole bunch of plants now, and I'm also going to tidy and clean both this room and the living room. And then I have a workout to do, but I'm hoping to make a little bit of a dent in this today because I am really excited to read it. And also I'd like to have this one knocked out by the end of March, and it's a chunky one. So I'm just past the 100-page mark in the name of all things. I don't know how I feel about it right now because the first book was confusing. There's a lot going on, a lot of different characters that are relevant in the grand scheme of things, and their connections to each other and all of the stuff that's gone on in the past and in the present is just a lot to wrap your head around. But it's very apparent when you're reading it, or to me it was at least, that Jen Lyons knows what's going on, even though I'm not 100% sure. So I kind of trusted that all would become clear as the story continued, and that might still be true. But what I didn't expect from this series, or at least this second book, I'm assuming it's going to be a recurring thing throughout the rest of the books, is that it would follow the same format as book one, but about different characters. So this one is largely about a character called Janelle, or Janelle. There's no pronunciation guide in the back of this one, so I can't double check how to pronounce it, but I think it would be Janelle. Once again, we have a foreword from like a third party, and then it goes into the story of a character told from two perspectives. I'm not sure, like in the first book, who the third party is or really their relevance to the story at this point, but they've put together like a transcript or like a documentation, a narration of Janelle's story told from two perspectives, one of them being Janelle herself, and one of them is, I guess, kind of like a monk who has traveled with her throughout this portion that they're narrating. So the monk is telling the story kind of from his perspective, but in third person and like his record of the events, and Janelle is telling it from her perspective in first person, and they're both telling the story to Kieran. So at the start of every chapter, it will go back to the setting where Kieran and these other two characters are, Janelle and the monk, and they'll have like a little conversation that recaps what they've just heard, and then it'll launch into an account of Janelle's story alternating between the perspective of her and the monk. So I'm not sure, because I loved how the first book was told, because it was, like I said before, not necessarily unique but definitely different, but I'm not sure how I feel about it happening again. Not only it being a recounting of a character's story, but also it being the same format of alternating between two perspectives in the form of like a transcript that somebody else, a different third party, so not the same third party as the first book, is putting together, if you know what I mean. I was expecting the story to continue in a way that was a little bit different from a normal story, but I didn't expect it to follow the exact same format. And this character that we're following in here is present in book one, but I would say that they're like outside the main kind of storyline. So they're not like a prominent side character, but they are kind of there, like they're kind of around. So yeah, it's just not what I expect, and obviously like I can't say no whether I like it or not as a whole, because I'm only 100 pages in, and as the story unfolds it might become apparent like why Jen Lyons has done it like this. It could grow on me and I could start to see like the relevance of everything that's going on. But the two characters, Janelle and Kieran, their stories definitely overlap, and there is hints to whereabouts in Kieran's story it is as we're listening to Janelle's story, if that makes sense. But I'm also finding it a little bit repetitive, because it's literally being repetitive. It's repeating things from book one, which is handy because it was so confusing a lot of the time, so it's like recapping me on stuff. But then at the same time it also feels kind of redundant, because it's like Kieran is explaining things that happened in book one to these two characters, or they're explaining things and concepts to him in a way as though we've never heard it before, because they haven't heard it before and they're catching each other up. So it feels kind of redundant in that way as well. So I'm just like very unsure, and I guess I'm kind of disappointed that we're doing the same thing again. And because I was so eager to continue Kieran's story, and I was so eager to see the characters that I really liked from book one, like Wraith, I'm a little sad that I'm not getting that, because we're rewinding it and telling another character's life story. So I am lagging on this. I wanted it done by the end of the month. I still have like 630 pages left, and I've got 2 days and the rest of tonight left. Good morning. It is bright and early. It is like just past 9 AM. We have been on the road for half an hour already, and it's a very exciting day because I'm going getting a tattoo. Are you excited?
Mm-hmm. Bill was just saying everything you said, then I had to turn it down.
So yeah, I've had a tattoo booked. It was supposed to be the 9th of March, but my artist got COVID. Then we rescheduled it and I had COVID, and now we're finally going, and I'm a little bit nervous about it. One, because it's the biggest tattoo that I have. It will be my 3rd tattoo and the largest. So I'm a little bit nervous about that, but also it just seems like a cursed appointment because of the 2 reschedules. That's where we're off to today, and we're currently getting a McDonald's breakfast, because any excuse for a McDonald's breakfast, I don't get to have one very often. So I made it home. I got really wet, really cold out today. It snowed today, which is wild because it was really warm over the weekend, and it alternated between drizzling for the entire day with a little bit of snow. So I've come home and put my onesie on straight away because I still cannot quite feel my fingers. But I went and I got my tattoo. I will show it you properly in the morning when I've taken the second skin off and also better lighting, but I'm really happy with it. I really like it. So now I'm gonna settle down and read as much of this as I can, because I wanted it finished today because I need to film my wrap up tomorrow, and I wanted to sneak it in before the end of the month. But I think it's pretty safe to say that that's not happening at this point. Can somebody please tell me what the hell is going on with this weather right now? So I've read pretty much absolutely nothing, but I'm just popping in to give you the view of my tattoo that I promised. It does go around a little bit over there, but I took the second skin off this morning and it looks so good. I love it so much. It's taken a little bit of getting used to, as I'm sure you guys who have tattoos can relate to. It's a little bit of a shock at first when you see it, but oh my god, it looks so good. And the way like the sun peeks out, the moon, I'm real happy with it.
Gathered by the sea, sand people anxiously, not once did speak to me.
Vlogging. A little bit, yeah.
It's a vlog.
It is.
Vlog.
Hello.
That each spoke the same, had the same dreams, same pain and same feelings, staring at the sea in what was left of me.
Good morning. We are currently in London, as you guys have probably already guessed. Ashley very kindly got us tickets to see Hamilton. The show is tonight. I'm really excited. So we decided to make a weekend of it. So we are about to head out, and we don't have any plans necessarily. We're just gonna do some more like sightseeing, having a look around, just a stroll, you know. Usually I say that I don't like London. This trip is changing my mind and nothing amazing's happened. I just don't dislike it as much as I used to. I am 315 pages into The Name of All Things, and I have to be honest, I'm considering DNFing this. I'm just not interested, and I'm really disappointed because this is the book that I was most excited to read of the 3 books that I'm reading in this vlog, and I really enjoyed the first one, but I just don't care about these characters, and I am still a little bit annoyed that this book is just kind of the same as the first one but following a different character. So I didn't bring any other books with me, and I don't anticipate getting much reading done today, but we will be heading home tomorrow. So we have, I think it takes another 3.5 hours to get home, so I've got lots of train time, about 3 hours of train time in total, where I will be reading this book because I didn't bring anything else with me. So I guess by the time I get home I'll decide if I'm going to continue, but it's just such a long book. I'm not even quite halfway through it, so I feel kind of weird if I DNF it now because I've invested so much time into it, but there's still a lot of the book to go. So yeah, not having a great time at the minute, but I will let you know for sure when I get back home tomorrow.
Each led like sheep, step foot to sea, drowning oh so patiently. Sand people sit and wait anxiously.
Literally just finished filming a book haul that I think has took me 2 hours to film. It's a real big one. But before I lose the will, I just really wanted to come in and let you guys know what I'm doing about the Name of All Things. So I was pretty sure that I wanted to DNF this, but somebody came in and commented on, I think it was my wrap up at the last second, and stopped me from DNFing. They said that this is their favorite series ever, but they think that book 2 is the weakest link and that book 1 and 2 are kind of like a prequel to books 3 to 5. So because of that, I've decided that I'm going to continue, but I don't really like it. I think my issue with this is that the first book was already confusing enough, and this book, instead of helping to clear up the 5,000 characters and 5,000 plot threads we had going on in the first book, it's just starting again with a new character and then a whole new set of side characters, which makes it 10 times more confusing. The point of the book that I'm up to now, I'm on page 486. It's now added back in some of the side characters from book 1 and how they relate to this character as opposed to Kieran in the first book. So now I have to remember all of these new characters and also try and remember the specifics of what these other characters were doing in the first book and how that's tying into this. And I feel like there was a better way to do this, maybe to tell it in a more linear way and have both of them ongoing. So like, instead of having one book for each character, have like half of this book and half of the first book in one book and then the second half in the second book. As well as that, the format and the way that this is told seemed really cool and interesting and kind of unique in book 1, but in book 2 it just feels like a gimmick. And one of the reasons for that that's actually really bugging me is that this is being put together by a different person. There's just books falling everywhere. But in book 1, it is one person building a document that leads up to the burning of the Capitol, and they are commenting on the story that Kieran and Talon are telling throughout in footnotes. This book is exactly the same, but it's a different character that's putting together a document. So my question is, if two different characters are putting together two different documents, why would they do it exactly the same way? They wouldn't, because they're different people who would approach things differently. So this just seems like a gimmick. Like, oh, we told it in a fun, quirky way in book 1, we're going to tell it in a fun, quirky way in book 2, when it doesn't necessarily make sense. Not that books have to make sense, I just like it if they do. I'm just not a fan of what's going on here. here, and I don't care. I just want to continue with the story that we started in book 1. So I've got 230 pages left-ish. I want it done tonight. Probably not gonna happen because I have the Buffy watch along, but I'm just ready for this to be over, and I'm really sad because this is going to slow down my momentum with this series, and I know I'm gonna drag my feet on picking up book 3, but I feel like it's important that I read these books close to each other because of how confusing they are. But I'm so disappointed by this book. I'm really sad about it. Good morning. I have a parcel from Waterstones. This is either a pre-order or a indie book that I ordered from the Waterstones website using the gift card that Gavin got me for Christmas. I think it's going to be the pre-order, which when you see what it is, like, I kind of regret pre-ordering this now. I only did it a couple of weeks ago, but yeah, it's definitely the pre-order. Flowers of Always by Jen Lyons. I was just so hopeful after finishing the first book, okay, that I ordered. I needed to make up the rest of the money on the gift card. I wanted to just like blow it all at once. So I saw that the paperback release of this was like early April. So I thought, you know what, may as well just do it now. Then you've got it. Obviously regretting that quite a lot now. I was speaking to Cassidy from Covers with Cassidy a couple of days ago, and she said that like I should definitely try book 3. Even if I don't like 2, like I should definitely push through book 2. So I'm definitely like set on that. But now I'm just really hoping that I like book 3. Oh, this one's quite long. This one's 700. Oh, well, they're all about the same. They're all around 700 pages. This one's 747, and God knows when I'll get to it now. Now that I'm struggling so much with The Name of All Things, which I still haven't finished, but I am definitely 100% going to finish this today because I'm on page 639. So I only have like 70 pages left, and I'm doing Patreon sprints with Ashley tonight. I did it! I finished The Name of All Things. It took me 10 days to finish this book. I cannot believe how much this dragged, especially because my favorite thing about the first book was how compelling it was and how much I wanted to return to it and how absorbed I was when I started. And this book did this in the first 100 pages, but after that it just completely lost me and I had no interest in continuing. And I'm mad about it as well because the last 70 pages of this book, okay, so both of the books are told in 2 perspectives. Eventually the 2 perspectives meet and the story continues. So the 2 perspective parts are telling you kind of the backstory that's led up to where everybody is in the moment that the actual events of the series are going to unfold. That may seem kind of complicated, but it's like the best way I can kind of explain it, I guess. So when we got to the part of this that was present day and wasn't telling Janelle's backstory, I started to enjoy this a lot more. It was a lot of action. Typically do not love action scenes. They can be done really well and I can really enjoy them, but just generally when I'm reading, it's not my favorite element of the book, and the end was very action based. But I love Relosvar and the moral ambiguity there, so I liked those elements of how this wrapped up. And the epilogue was amazing. 5 stars to the epilogue, 3.5 to 4 stars for the last 70 pages of the book, 2 stars for the rest. I'm so mad at how good the end was in comparison to the rest. If it was as good as the end, even though I said like 3.5, 4 stars for the last 70 pages apart from the epilogue, amazing, that was what I wanted. But no, it's just, I don't know why I disliked this one so much in comparison to the first book. Like, part of it is that I'm kind of, I guess, a bit salty that the story kind of backtracks on itself to fill in the entire life story pretty much of this other character, when I wanted the story to continue from that point. Some of it is just that I didn't really vibe with it, because you think logically, like, if it was the same again and I enjoyed book 1, there'd be things that I enjoyed about this, but it really didn't do it for me. I'm so sad as well. But thank you so much to Ash for gifting this one to me. It did have interesting things to say about gender as well. The country that Janelle is from view gender differently to the rest of the world and to how typically the world that we live in views gender, and that was really interesting to read. I just really hope the book 3, I think, is it The Memory of Souls, picks up and continues the story and doesn't introduce yet another the character that I have to read the life story of just to get to the point where like it actually becomes relevant to the plot. And it is like filling in little bits of information, but I think I just don't like the setting and the characters of this one, because there were bits that had some of the characters from the first book in, like some of the prominent side characters, and I enjoyed those bits a little bit more, but it was just the entire cast of characters and the setting and the plot for some reason did not love it. And no Teraith. Teraith was my favorite character from the first book, and I definitely 100% wanted more Teraith, and there was very little Teraith content in this one, so I'm glad that that one's over. I gave it 2 stars. So it's finally time to read the final book for this vlog, which is going to be Fires of Vengeance by Evan Winter. So this one is the second book in the Burning series, yeah, and this series is going to be 4 books overall. The second book is the most recent published in this one, so alas, I will be waiting with everybody else when I finish this one. But this one is an adult military fantasy, so perfect for Realmathon, because this vlog was supposed to be finished before April, but now the Magical Readathon and Realmathon has started. Haven't calculated my points and submitted them yet for this, but I think when I had a look last night, this will get me 12 points for Dale, so that's what I'm going with. And I'm gonna have to rework my Magical Readathon TBR now to get the Fires of Vengeance in for a prompt that I need, because I've spent so much time reading these books when I should have already finished them, and I'm not sure how many points this will get me for Realmathon, but it will be a lot because it is a military fantasy. But this one is following a guy called Tao who lives in this country, I think it's an island, that's at war with the rest of the world, and the place where Tao lives, there are people with magical powers, and they have the power to do things like call down dragons, imbue other people with dragon strength, and it's only the women that can do this. Every man in this world is drafted into the military to support this war with the heathens, and Tao has kind of accepted that life for himself up until he starts reconnecting with his childhood sweetheart and thinks that maybe a life of war is not what he wants. So he makes a plan that gets very quickly derailed when something terrible happens to a member of his family, and he ends up on this like single-minded mission to get revenge that includes him joining the army so that he can rise to military status and have the right to challenge the people who've done this to his family without being executed for it. So I did really enjoy the first book. My only criticism is not necessarily a criticism, it's more of an observation because it's very intentional. Tao has very little about his personality because he dedicates every single waking second, not just waking seconds actually, to his revenge mission. So he has like little personality because everything about his life is about this revenge mission, and I'm a very character driven reader. I prefer books that have really great characters and a really great plot, but if I had to choose one, I would definitely rather read a book with really good characters and character development than really good plots. And I just struggle to connect with Tao in a way that would make a book my favorite because of how little else there is about him, with him being so focused. So I am going to be listening along to the audiobook while I read this one. I think it is 14 hours or 15 maybe, so 7 to 7.5. I think I listen on like 2.15 speed. I listened to the first one, but I will be reading along at the same time. Would recommend the audiobook for this as well. The narrator's voice, amazing. I swear that this is the last book from the Waterstones order that I placed at the beginning of this vlog. This one must be the indie, which I knew was going to arrive later anyway. I'm really excited for this, and I'm feeling like after I finish with these dragon books, I kind of want to veer off my TBR, which I really should not be doing. But I just want a little bit of a reset because I'm in a real reading mood, but because the books I've been reading have been so slow, I'm not satisfying the urge I have to read. This one is very tempting because it's quite small, and it is Savage Lands by Stacey Marie Brown, which I've heard amazing things about. This one's a fantasy romance, but I think it's like kind of post-apocalyptic. Part of it's set in Budapest, like at least part of this first book is, and I've seen it recommended in lists with like Fortuna Swan and like The Bridge Kingdom and other fantasy romance that I really like. So I'm hyped. And also, like Emily Henry, Stacey Marie Brown is going to be at Rare, so I do want to read this before the end of May. It's only 365 pages, so I'm like, do I just fuck around and read this weekend? I don't know, but I'm happy that it's a matte cover because I really like indie copies. They just feel real sturdy, but I don't like ones with shiny covers. Good morning, happy Sunday. I'm very much embodying all Sunday vibes today. And I am now quite a bit over halfway through Fires of Vengeance. I'm on page 294 out of like 550, and I'm really enjoying this one. It does carry on pretty much seamlessly from the end of Rage of Dragons. It's really great to be coming back into this not long after having read the first book, but also knowing all of the setup and the basics of the magic and the world that we learned in the first book, because it's making this one so much more enjoyable for me already than the first one was. Not that I disliked the first one, but it's just that little bit easier to follow because I already know a lot of the fantastical terminology and all of that kind of stuff. That being said, I don't think that I will give this book 5 stars even though I'm really enjoying it, because it is just very action based. In the first 120 pages there are at least 3 fight scenes. It has slowed down quite a bit throughout the middle though, as the characters are training for something. Something that I'm really enjoying that's just kicking in now is that we're getting some information about the history of the Omehi people, how the magic came to be and why there's a class system and all of that good stuff that y'all know that I really love in fantasy. Tao is still very much a driven person who knows what he wants, and his main thing is to accomplish his goal. His goal has shifted slightly, but he's still dead set on accomplishing it, to the fact where like he is pushing things to the side, but he's also taking on a little bit of a different role in this book, and he's also more aware of how driven he was in book 1 and how maybe he needs to adjust that mindset a little bit. I'm having a really good time with this one. I'm really excited to continue. Once again, absolutely would recommend the audiobook. It's just such a good audio, which is rare for me to say with fantasy. It's not often that I can actually listen and follow adult high fantasy audio, but the narrator does a really good job with this one. So I am actually aiming to finish this today. We'll see how long it takes. I have about 3 hours and 7 minutes left of the audiobook. I'm not just going to sit here and binge it all at once. I do want to, there's nothing that I need to do today at all, but just to break up the reading a little bit, I want to just like move around a little bit every so often. The hoovering could do with being done, so I'll probably do little bits like that in between bouts of reading Fires of Vengeance. I did it. I managed to finish Fires of Vengeance by Evan Winter, and this one is by far my favorite book that I've read in this vlog. I'm really surprised because this actually came so close to 5 stars. I rated it 4.5 overall, but I think after the first 200 pages of this, the pacing really slows down, and it's still a relatively quick paced book. There's still plenty of things going on, lots of battles, fight scenes, but there's also a little bit that goes into how the main characters and the people, like Tao's people, ended up in the position that they are today. There's a little bit more about the demon elements of the books. There's more about like the lineage of the queens. There's also 2 characters who are present in the first book but definitely more present in this one that are part of the royalty. That, oh my god, there was one chapter in this book, so like the chapters that are sections, so like the chunks, because this book is formatted in like smaller sections that make up a larger chapter. So the larger chapter, there was one section from one of those characters' perspectives that was my favorite part of the book, and then the more you get into this, the darker it gets, and there's just a lot of grey morality in here, and there's certain parts from characters' perspectives that really highlights the duality of the story and like who's right and who's wrong. All of the characters in this book are constantly being pushed towards their limits, and Tao as a character pretty much embodies the saying mind over matter in a way that is honestly wild. Throughout the first book and this book, I do find his character development to be quite realistic in that you can very clearly see the steps that have brought him to the place where he is, and in terms of like how he evolves as a warrior from the beginning of the first book to where he is now. And while I still don't really feel that connection with Tao that I need for me to like adore a book, like I'm not super rooting for him, I am slowly getting closer to that point with like every installment that I read in here, and he is developing as a character, especially throughout the second book, to kind of go back on what I said about the first book, how because he's so singularly driven, there's not much else about his personality. That is very slowly changing page by page, which I'm really enjoying. I love the scale in here, which are kind of like the found family elements, and those 2 characters that I said were part of the royalty. That whole thing was just so good. The end of this book, I was on edge because I thought it was going to end on a cliffhanger, and it does somewhat, but not as drastically as I thought it was going to be. But I am really excited to get to book 3 whenever it's published, because it's heading into a little bit of a new direction that I'm interested to explore, and this book just made it feel more well-rounded and fully fledged out, and added so many more elements to the story, or I guess developed them, because they were already present in the first book. And yeah, I really loved it. So it's 4 stars, but it came out as very close to a 5-star on Corpile, and 100% the best book that I've read in this video. So there we go, I did it. I read all of the sequels to the Dragon series, and wow, this has taken me so much longer than I anticipated. I was saying how one of the reasons why I wanted to make this vlog is because I did the first part at such like a, not a rapid pace, but much faster than I expected to, and also had such a good time with it. I had a 2-star read in this book, and it was the one that I was most excited to read out of the 3, and it's definitely taken me much longer. We are exactly at the 3-week point now, I think. As I've said earlier as well, Magical Readathon and Realmathon have now begun. It's the weekend of the Peace Talks when I've read this one, so it has managed to score me a whopping 32 points for Bale, which I'm very happy about, mainly because it is a military fantasy, and then you get an extra 10 points if you read a book during the Peace Talks. And then I did say to you guys that I was going to look at the Magical Readathon syllabus and swap this book into the hardest prompt that I needed to fulfill that it would fit for. So I'm going with Restoration for this one. The prompt for that is to read a book featuring healers, and the one that I'm swapping out of that prompt is Jade City, which I do still plan on reading, but I did have 2 of the Greenborn Saga books in my TBR, and I don't think I'm going to get to both of them. So yeah, a very happy ending. After a slog for 2 weeks, we got a happy ending to this vlog. So please do let me know down in the comments whether you guys have read any of these books and what you guys thought of them. Also let me know if you want me to continue making dragon vlogs, because that is a possibility. I would have to swap out the Rainwild Chronicles and the Burning series, but I could carry on with Chorus of Dragons. Unfortunately, that would be the one that I carried on with, but like I'm staring at least 3 dragon books in front of me now that I could swap in for the 2 that won't get to carry on into another vlog. Or if you guys would like to see me do something like this with a different theme, like Assassins or Fae or something like that, where I read the first book in a series or wherever I'm up to and then continue making installments. Not promising that either of those are going to happen, but I mean, it's a possibility if it's something you guys would be interested in. Next week, I've already started filming a vlog, which includes the rest of the Peace Talks, the 48-hour readathon for Realmathon, and I can tell you that the direction that I'm going in is very much romance. I need a little bit of a cleanse. I'm in a mood where I just want to ditch my TBR and binge a whole ton of romance, so I'm going to roll with that a little bit, and it is going to be a mix of like contemporary romance and fantasy romance. I think, I don't know, I'm taking a week to just like abandon my TBR and mood read, but like using the Magical Readathon prompts as a guide. So do stay tuned if that's something that you may be interested in. But aside from that, guys, I do hope you've enjoyed this vlog if you've made it this far. If you have, please don't forget to like if you liked it and subscribe if you wanna, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you'll go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.